Okay, going live.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and do it.
It says we're live right now. Okay.
Okay.
What's it
Um.
showing?
Okay, so it's buffering now. Okay, so now I see your screen. Um, yep, I see your screen. Um,
Go
oh,
to us now.
yep.
There you go.
Are we good?
We're good.
Are we good? Alrighty. We're about an hour behind, but this is take two of the NASCAR bracket breakdown. And just looking at YouTube right now, there's a little bit of buffering, a little bit, but it looks better. Uh, so I guess let's just start from the top. Uh, I don't know. Where do you guys want to start off at right now?
I feel like people already know who we are, so
Yeah, we
let's
already
go
know who
ahead
you
and
are.
just go right into
Okay.
the Indy recap.
Okay, so going into the final race of the regular season at Indianapolis, we had Clint Boyer, Daniel Suarez, Ryan Newman, and Jimmy Johnson battling for the last two playoff spots based off of points. Clint Boyer entered eight ahead. Suarez and Newman were tied, and Johnson was 18 below. Needed to have a really good points day, if not possibly win the event. So, Jake, we'll start with you. What were some key points in the race? Because as we know, Boyer moved on and Newman moved on. So what were some key points for them to be able to move on, and what were some obvious reasons or key events that prevented Suarez and Johnson from getting out?
So what I say is like Boyer and Newman, they ran consistent all day. They stayed out of trouble. They were up front for majority of the day. So Newman was surprisingly like had a great run, like going on all day. Like I was watching him, making sure like because I wanted to see Jimmy get it. So I was mainly watching Newman like shoot, come on, screw up, screw up, screw up. But he was running good, like, and I admit that. And Suarez was running good as well, but he needed to get past Newman to get in as we've seen, because Boyer, he had a little bit of a gap. He was a little bit fine, so we didn't really have to worry about him so much. And then when he was in front of Newman, like he was especially good. So I said he was not a problem at all. But what really just like ruined Suarez was just Newman right out in front of him. So it was just overall just a race that Newman just blatantly just beat Suarez. So that's what kept Suarez out.
Yeah, Griffin.
Okay, so I guess the point of attack I want to go at is just not just from this race at Indy in general, but just throughout the season. Like the fact that like it all came down to this, how both Johnson and Boyer, like at the beginning, they seemed pretty like reasonable. They seemed like that they were going to be in the playoffs, and we thought, oh, they'll just be almost like shoo-ins. Like we thought that they were going to go in. But then we get to like the final race, and Johnson and Boyer are both like on the line with Johnson, like not even going in, and we thought like, how the heck was this going to happen? And then we see like Newman, who, as they mentioned in the broadcast, like last year that was a terrible team, and nothing against Trevor Bayne, but just like that team, they were like 25th, somewhere like that in points. But Newman was able to be consistent and was able to finish well when it mattered, and he was able to, as Jake mentioned, was able to be right in front of Suarez, and that's all that mattered was that Newman was just at the right place at the right time. He didn't win any races. He didn't like go for it all, but Ryan Newman was able to be there when it mattered most and was able to get one of the last spots. And then with Boyer, same thing with Johnson. Just like how at first like he seemed promising. And with what happened last year, like when he had Michigan and Martinsville in 2018, we thought, oh, he's going to be a shoe-in. Stewart Haas is going to be excellent. But the fact that Boyer just continued to have struggles and problems, and then coming back to Indy, how Boyer just barely made it in was incredible. And then lastly with Suarez, like I was not expecting Suarez to like make it in or like be that good. I'm surprised he got as close as he did. But again, it's just a matter of like new team, lots of new areas for Suarez, and like I get it, it's his third year now in the Cup Series, but yeah, I kind of wish Suarez was able to push it the limit just a little bit more, but at the same time, we got what we got here at the end. Cody.
Yeah, so I don't think we have ever had like this many people like potentially on the brink of making it in, making it out going into the last race of the season. Like usually it's like okay, it's one person that has a shot of getting in from the outside and based off of points, everyone else has to win to try to make it in. Um, but I think it was just amazing how even after the stage points in the first two stages, it still came out to an end of Suarez had to beat Newman. Newman had to beat Suarez for one of those two to make it into the final playoff spot. Um, so yeah, to be honest, I feel like Boyer did what he needed to do, and if anything, he's had that speed the past several weeks. It's just that something happens. He gets caught up in a wreck, engine failure. Well, not really any mechanical failures, but just something never has gone his way. But he's had that speed. Um, Someone who has also had speed too the past couple of weeks was Jimmy Johnson, and unfortunately, for the first time in the history of the chase, this playoffs format since 2004, Jimmy Johnson does not have the chance to make the NASCAR chase, NASCAR playoffs to run for the championship. So Jake, we'll go to you. What's just the significance of that, him not being able to run for that championship?
I almost said this is the change of the guard in the Cup Series now because it's like Jimmy Johnson's been the guy like throughout the whole years. Like he's our 7-time champion that like we've seen like dominate the series, and just seeing him not make it into the playoffs just shows that like there's a whole new generation coming up, and we have to be looking at these guys. That these guys are the future of the sport. Even though we have Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, who are still running great, who are like part of the great like rookie class that we had like between 2000 and 2007. But overall, it's like it's a new NASCAR. Like I say, this is a whole different ball game now since like we don't have like a multi-champion guy in the playoffs. Like we have a guy we have like single series champions. We don't have double series champions. We don't have triple series champions. Like we seen when like Tony Stewart was in, when Kyle Busch, well, when Jeff Gordon was in the like racing cars against each other. Like it's a whole different NASCAR now. So it's a changing of the guard, I feel like. But if Jimmy Johnson can like prove that like, hey, I can win, like if I can like because I saw something like he was on the Dale Jr. download and he's talking about like the internal fire he has. He has like so much determination to get back into victory lane. I feel like he's gonna get back into.
The first thing I'll just say off the bat was that Johnson he's one of my least favorite drivers, just personally. I don't know, just something about him. I just didn't like. Plus, I was just not a fan of him just winning like all the time. It got a little repetitive. But besides the point, I'll get off that train. But it's very weird. It's very weird seeing him like not win like as much. Like the fact that he's on this like winless streak is just bizarre. And like what Jake said, like this is like a change of the guard, but not the direction that us or even NASCAR was thinking. Because I think NASCAR was thinking like Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones was going to like get up there and start getting all those wins. But like Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, I would even throw in Kurt Busch is still holding on, and they're all getting up there in age, and like Brad Keselowski as well. So it's like, yeah, it's a little bit of a change of the guard, but not necessarily the way that a lot of us would have thought or predicted it to be. And so it's weird. And so even though technically, yes, Johnson is out, his crew chief for most of the time, which was Chad Knaus, is still going. And this is his 16th chase / playoffs now with William Byron.
That
So,
that is
so
that is a good point. I didn't really think of that.
yeah, so it brings into question like how much of Jimmy's success really did come from Chad Knaus, and that's something to ponder and think about moving forward. Like, did Chad really do that with Jimmy, or is there some other like missing piece that we haven't really thought about yet? So yeah, it's a very big impact, and as Jake said, Jimmy Johnson was on the latest episode of the Dale Jr. Download, um, and yeah, he still has that fire and that passion. But the problem is, as he mentioned, with the change of the guard, because like Jimmy is the old guy there now, because he's like in like 43 years old, while Chase is 23, Byron is just like 21, Bowman 26, and I wouldn't be surprised if Hendrick is putting a lot more of a focus on them because like sure Johnson has like a lot of backing, but at the same time I feel like we gotta focus on like the quote unquote hot commodity that
Hmm.
is Chase Elliott. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
Well,
yeah,
yeah. Well, here's what I make out of a lot of it. I mean, I know we got a lot of people saying, "Oh, Jimmy's gonna be out the door soon. Jimmy's gonna retire. He's lost and everything."
Oh, he's
Um.
nowhere to go. He's
Oh.
still going to be in the
Oh,
championship.
I know. And here's why I'm saying this. Dale Earnhardt. He won two races early in 1996. I think like it was in like those first 5 or 6 races of the season. He won two races, maybe the first 7. Didn't win a race the rest of the season. Went all of 1997 without a win. In 1998, yeah, he finally broke through and won the Daytona 500, but that was it. So obviously, you had to like assume and you have to be for certain that there were obviously people then who were thinking, oh, Dale, he's getting up there. He's gonna be out the door soon. But what happened? 1999 came back and won 3 races, and 2000 he won his famous final race at Talladega, and he won that close race against Bobby Labonte at Atlanta, uh, and finished second in the points that season. And like also there was talk up until 2001 before he tragically died of him like having a run of possibly an 8th championship. So just learning from history, I don't think that just because Johnson is in what we would consider a slump compared to his past 7 championships, that this means that he is out the door. So that's my take onto it. Okay, so yeah, so for sake of time here, we're gonna move on to the point of this broadcast, talking about the playoffs. So we're gonna go through each of you. I want you guys to name a couple drivers who would you think who's hot, who's not, and who's a sleeper potentially in these playoffs. Jake, we'll start with you.
All right, so the driver that I say is hot right now. I mean, I got to go with Danny Hamlin. Like he's been like very consistent. He's always up front. He's very much like going out there running every race, and he's shown why he deserves to be in that 11 car. Like I was saying at the beginning of the year, this is a make or break for him, and he's showing that like he's making the most of this opportunity right now. And I feel like he's definitely like a front runner for this championship. Like just by how consistent he's been running and how well he's been like doing in that car, like so much better than last year, so much better than a few years ago. This is one of his best seasons that we've seen in such a long time. So that's why I say he's the man to like watch out in this playoffs. I feel like he's safe in the first round. Second round, maybe not so much. Third round, definitely not. But I feel like he could be a contender for the top 4, like going into Homestead. While who's not so hot, I say anybody that was struggling to get into the playoffs. So like I say like Ryan Newman and Clint Boyer. Even though they showed a lot in Indy, they showed that like the car consistently works, but consistency within the playoffs can get you so far. Like Newman like doesn't even I think he only has like 16 laps left on the season, which is incredible to think like somebody in the playoffs only led 16 laps. So I say like Boyer and Newman are not going to be like game past like the first round. Like they struggled so much, and I don't see them like coming through in any way, shape, or form. And then my sleeper pick is the winner at Darlington, Eric Jones, just by showing like how consistent he has been since I believe they said Kansas or Charlotte. He's third up there with behind Kyle Busch and Joey Logano. He's a top running guy who just got his first win of the season. It's just about time he broke through. And it's honestly just dawns on me like the amount of like time it took for him to get a win by showing like he has like 9.1 before Indy he had like a 9.1 average finish, which placed him third. So it just shocks me like how long it took him to get a win, and he finally pulled through. Even though he was locked into the playoffs, he didn't like have to like win, and like he was like out of the playoffs, so like he had to get a win. Like he was in. So it shows like how much determination he has, and I say he's definitely going to be somebody to watch in this playoffs. Go on to Griff.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I was just like scrolling at Twitter, and Brett Moffitt just retweeted, and he just said, "Let's get me to Phoenix Raceway with 2 pit passes and seat there." So
really,
yeah, you better.
yeah,
awesome.
I just got that like a minute ago. So
no way.
Incredible.
yeah. So sorry to sidetrack.
No, that's awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So yeah, the tweet said, and I'll retweet it. He said, "Let's do it. I'll make a deal. If we can get 100 new veteran names on the truck by next week, I'll make sure that I have 2 pit passes and a seat on our GMS Racing pit box at ISM Raceway. Spread the word. Plan B sales. What do you think?" So,
dude, that is awesome news. That is awesome breaking. Honestly, that's probably about the best breaking news that we will ever get on the history of this podcast.
I just retweeted it, so it might help.
Breaking news.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm sorry. So let's get back to this podcast. So,
Alrighty.
So my hot guy, my attractive guy, my lovable guy is Kevin Harvick. He is definitely coming in at the right time, winning at Michigan, winning at Indy, and I think he's like the Brad Keselowski last year. Because remember, Brad won like 3 races in a row around this time, and so I think that Kevin is coming in at the right time, and I think he's not done winning races, and I think he could be a serious threat for the championship. The guy who I think is not, a guy that really no one has talked about this year is Almirola. Eric Almirola just made the playoffs, and I was originally going to say sleeper, but I think like he's not ready. I honestly don't think he's ready, and I would not be surprised if he's out of the first round this year because he just had nothing to show. Like, sure, he might have some top 10s and whatnot, but yeah, like I just don't think that Almirola has what it takes to make it through the playoffs this year, unlike last year. And then my sleeper, I'm gonna say Chase Elliott. Chase also has made it into the playoffs, and I don't think he'll make much noise in round 1. But he's coming into some tracks that he's had success in, like Dover and Kansas, and I think he might have a shot at Martinsville as well. I mean, he's done well there in the past couple of years. So, yeah, don't be surprised if you see Chase being the sleeper into the Championship 4 from Homestead.
Great. So, here's my hot. I feel like this guy is not getting talked about at all as much as he should, and that is Kyle Larson. Currently, right now, so I'm a big person, and when I was making my picks for my bracket, I am a huge fan of, obviously, like, what you've done throughout the season, but a really big fan of what have you done for me lately. Going through, like, our list of drivers who made the playoffs, like, of their last 10 race average, Larson is currently tied with Kyle Busch for the second highest last 10 race average at an 11.6. And that number would have been higher if he didn't have that terrible issue last week at Indianapolis. He's had, especially as of late, he had, personally, I believe, the race-winning car to win at Darlington. He had great speed, obviously, at Indy. He's had a great speed just in the past several weeks in general. And even though he hasn't had those wins, he hasn't had a win. He's winless so far this season. He didn't get a win last season. Everything there, just in Chip Ganassi Racing in general, is moving in the right direction. Who is not hot right now? I'd agree with that. That was my pick too, Griffin. Eric Almirola. And kind of like him, along with Boyer and Suarez, it's been all those three kind of in like their area, while Kevin Harvick has been at his own level up there at SHR. The thing with Almirola though is that he's just been like having to do what he's been needing to do just to get by, but with all these points resetting, you got playoff points to an issue. The way he's going right now, I don't see him moving out past the first round. And then sleeper, I don't say this is because he's my favorite driver, but I say William Byron. Byron, he's gotten quite a few poles in the past couple of races, just in this season in general. Has a fourth best average last 10 race finish of 11.9, coming only in behind Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and Larson. So that's beating guys like Truex, Jones, Harvick, Logano, Kurt Busch, Keselowski. Um, Look, I say he's a guy that could make that Cinderella story, possibly, in putting up a fight against these guys like Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Harvick, all those. So, alrighty, now it gets to our favorite point of the night here, where we start going round by round for our picks for this 2019 playoffs. But right before we get to these picks, though, we want to bring up something that we're going to be throwing on called the NASCAR Bracket Breakdown NBB Challenge. And that's where we get you guys, you viewers, involved in this prediction with us. So here's all you have to do. By the time the green flag waves at the first playoff race in Las Vegas, you guys fill out, make your own playoff bracket prediction, upload it, the picture of it to Twitter, and use the hashtag NBB Challenge, and also tag me, Griffin, and Jake Bassinger in that photo. And then if we see that you posted it before the race started, you'll be eligible.
Rusty.
Oh, and Rusty, yeah, who is not with us. Who is not with us tonight, unfortunately. He's actually went to go see Blink of an Eye, which I'm actually jealous that he went and saw that because I really wanted to go see it. But yeah, so and then there'll be more details about that as far as like what the winners get in coming episodes. But yeah, that would be awesome. You guys could play around in that channel. It would be fun. Again, upload your completed bracket picture to Twitter using the hashtag NBB Challenge, and also tag me, Griffin, Jake, and Rusty Walrus in that to be eligible for the contest before the drop of the green flag at Las Vegas. All right, gentlemen, here we go. First round is Las Vegas, Richmond, and the Roval at Charlotte. Never before has a non-chaser won in the first round, so odds are that it will be whoever of these chasers wins these races will be moving on. So, Jake, let's start with you. What does your first round look like? Who's in and who's out?
All right, so I'm just gonna say the drivers are out because it proves that like everybody else that I don't say is in.
Yeah,
So-
I agree to that.
Yeah. I don't want to name everybody that's going to be in and these drivers are out. So,
Yeah.
really, I'm going to go with the two bubble guys, Ryan Newman and Clint Boyer. They're going to be out. I feel like they're not going to get anywhere past because, like I said, consistency can only get you so far with this playoff system. I'll also say Eric Almirola. I noticed like his stats. Like he only has one top 5 this season. Like that is way off from like what he was like the past few seasons, but he does have top 10, so he's consistent, but not consistent enough in this playoff system. And plus, he doesn't like really have like that many stage points, so he's really just gonna be like left out there. I also say as like the guy that I say is gonna be like right on the bubble, right there that could get in, but I don't see getting in like past the first round is William Byron. Just his based off of his like inexperience being in the playoffs, and plus he has Chackenhouse. Like this is a whole new partnership. Chackenhouse recently was with Jimmy Johnson. He knows how the playoff system works. He won a championship back in 2016. But William Byron's still a young guy. He's still developing. I feel like him just getting into the playoffs is great to see, but he still needs some time. And I feel like this is not his year to get past the first round. On to you, Griff.
Okay, so for me, I think one little detail I'll add, just to kind of give my prediction of how round 1 is going to go. I feel like Penske as a whole is going to do excellent in this. I would not be surprised if at least a Penske driver does win one of the races. Like I could see Brad or Joey winning Las Vegas. But yeah, I think Penske is going to do really well. And then the 4 guys that I have out, I agree that both Newman and Boyer will be out. I just don't like unless they can pull some special lucky charm out or something like that. I just don't think they have it. Same with Almirola, as I said before. I just don't think I think it's too little, too late for him. He might have a shot come but Las Vegas, but otherwise I don't think so. The one difference I'll go from you, Jake, I think Byron will be in the round of 12. The guy who I have out is Larson. And the reason,
Ooh.
yeah, so it's a little bit of a hot take, but
We already different.
the reason why I think Larson will be out is because I feel like he's going down the route of Johnson in 2018, where I think he will get close, but I think he will just be short and he'll just miss round one. So I like, and again, I like Larson at like maybe Las Vegas, but the dice is not in his favor, and I don't think Larson will make it to the round of 12. Cody?
I can tell you, with you saying that Larson ain't going to make it onto the round of 12, we are going to have a very, very, very great amount of disagreement regarding Larson. I'll just say that right now. If that's a hint, what's to come. So who I have moving on to round of 12, your obvious guys: Kyle Busch, Hamlin, Truex, Logano, Harvick. Those guys have been great all season long, very consistent. Jones has been great as of late. He's moving on. Byron, he's had great momentum these last couple of weeks. I'm moving him on. And then Larson moving him on. Those guys. So the guys I got out are the bottom three seeds: Newman, Boyer, Almirola. Just what they've shown the past, not just these past several weeks, just kind of all season. Is like they're kind of not at where the rest of these playoff guys are. So I had those three out, and I'm different on this too. Like, I don't think any of you guys said this, but this may be a shock to some people, but I have Alex Bowman not making it to round 12. To round 12. Here's why. Yes, he does have that win at Chicagoland, but ever since that win, he's only had one top 10. That's it. That team is struggling for speed right now. They just been kind of in that teens area. Like, they haven't been breaking out. They're not having that momentum that they need for these playoffs. Not saying that they can't turn that around, because we saw Bowman do well at Vegas last year, and with Vegas being a track similar to Chicagoland, that could be a place where he's well. But other than that, I don't see him moving on to the round of 12 based off of speed.
Okay.
Despite his win at Chicagoland too.
Despite his win at Chicagoland, as of late, and here's the thing: he was really good during that stretch where he had those second place finishes, those top 5, top 10 finishes. But it's like ever since that win, he's just gone backwards. He's gone downward. Nothing in these past 9 weeks is a resemblance of what he had towards the beginning, middle of this season, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's where I stand on that. So, alrighty, yeah, that is our round of 16 predictions. On to the round of 12. The races in these round of 12 are Dover, uh, Talladega, which we all know is the ultimate wild card, and Kansas, which is another 1.5-mile track. So keep it going with the pattern here. Jake, on to you.
All right, so I'm already going to say this: Dover, Talladega, and Kansas all have in common Hendrick is strong on those tracks. They are very strong. They were running up front every single race that they had, like ever since like the first race of the season, like with Dover, Talladega, and Kansas. Hendrick was always up in front. So I don't see any like who I have like Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott. I see them like moving on like right away. Like those are like my locks just to get into the round of 8. So, but some of the guys that I feel like are not going to make it, like just based off because this I was talking to Workman before. This is the hardest round to pick.
Oh yeah,
because I have so many people who are like, I feel like could do great. I feel like could do good, but maybe they won't have luck. Just like I pretty much just like based this. I pretty much picked my round of 8 before I picked my round of 12 because I feel like this is the hardest round to pick. But the guys who I have out: Kurt Busch, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr.,
Oh,
Ryan Blaney.
Wow.
okay.
I don't
Okay.
I feel like Martin Truex Jr. does not have enough luck at Talladega when it comes to like racing there. Like like every time I see him, he always is either involved in a wreck or he's always in the back of the field. I kind of feel like that's gonna like really affect him going into Kansas. Even though with all the wins he has, I feel like he's gonna struggle this round. Even though he won Dover, if he can win like Dover again, then I could see that. But I don't. I feel like the Hendrick guys are gonna be strong at Dover. I just have a strange feeling that like Chase Elliott or Alex Bowman could win that race, and I feel like that could really affect Martin Truex Jr. because Kansas he could win, but he really hasn't been like that. He wasn't really that strong at Kansas earlier in the year, even though it's a completely different time. I feel like I don't see him doing so hot at Kansas. So I feel like he's going to be the guy that could be the surprise guy out of the round of 12, like round of 12. Ryan Blaney really never has luck at these tracks, especially Talladega. I don't like he runs up front every time, but he always gets involved in the wreck. He always like if he could stay out of a wreck, that's the only way I could feel like he could move on to the round of 8. But Ryan Blaney, he really doesn't have luck in the round of 12. I feel like he's going to be completely just out. Kurt Busch, kind of a shock there, but it was kind of hard to decide if he can move on or not. But I feel like it's pretty much based off luck because like the way I see him, it's like either he's in the top 5 or outside the top 10. Like he's never in that in between area that could help you out within moving to the round of 8. So I feel like his inconsistency to finish in between the top 10 and top 5 is really going to affect him from moving on. And Kyle Larson, Talladega, that's going to ruin him. Like we saw it this year. He's went over and over and over again. He really never has luck at Talladega. He really doesn't have luck on super speedways in general. It's either something like occurs or his car just breaks down. So I feel like Talladega is the huge wild card here, and I feel like that's what's gonna like affect all these drivers here. And like that's the only way to think about like this round is Talladega, Talladega, Talladega. So like it's just gonna affect everything, and that's the ultimate wild card. And that's the reason why I think like some of those guys are not gonna move past around 12. Griff, on to you.
Okay. Just off the bat, if I start like tearing up during this, I apologize. Sorry, I was just looking at the feedback on Twitter, and you guys are just amazing. So anyway, sorry, predictions.
Oh, we're good.
So,
We're good. That's awesome
so,
news.
so, yeah. So round of 12. Oh gosh. Okay. So yeah, as Jake's mentioned, it's a bit unpredictable at Talladega. So I'm kind of basing it more off of just Dover and Kansas. So my 4 that are not going to make it into the round of 8. First of all, Byron, and I just think Talladega is going to plague him. And I kind of look at the spring race where Byron kind of wrecked at the very end. And plus, I just, yeah, I know Byron won at Daytona Blaney, but Blaney hasn't really shown, unless he can pull a miracle win at Talladega, I don't think Blaney will move on to the round of 8. Um, I also say Kurt Busch. I know he won at Kentucky, but I don't think Kurt Busch will move on to the round of 8. I just don't, again, Talladega, but also, like, if there's only any track that I think it could really suit him, it is Kansas, just because of the 1.5 mile track. But Dover, I just don't. I don't even remember where Kurt Busch even placed at Dover, honestly. So, and I could maybe look that up later. And then my second hot take for the night, the final person who I don't have going into the round of 8 is Brad Keselowski. I don't have him moving into the round of 8 because yeah, and again, Talladega will play havoc, but I just don't. I don't know. And honestly, what I would even add is from the first round. Like, I do have Brad K going into the round of 12, but not at a good place. Like, I don't think like he will get any stage points, any playoff points, any bonus points, anything to help him move up. And because of that, I think that will hurt Brad K. And because of that, Brad Keselowski will not move on to the round of 8. Cody?
Alrighty. Uh, yeah, I think we can all agree, like, from this point forward, like, as far as, like, I mean, yeah, you have your guys, like, you have your Joe Gibbs guys, Kyle, Denny, Truex, Jones. I think all four of those guys are going to move on. So I feel like Gibbs is going to make up half of the round of eight, just because they're all good right now. There's no denying it. I don't see why they wouldn't, unless they get some bad luck, like a wreck, mechanical failures, things like that. Um, from this point, it got difficult. I think Logano goes on just because of his one. He's good at plate tracks, and he's good at these other tracks we go to. He's good at Kansas. Not so much Dover, but with those playoff points he has right now, that's enough of a buffer. Harvick, he's going on just because of his role that he's on. Um, it was. This is a key point for Kyle Larson. I have him moving on. Jake, you brought it up. Jake, you brought it up well. If he can survive Talladega, I think he can have a chance to go on to the round of eight. Just because one, he's good at Kansas. He had a great run there last year trying to make it in, and also he's really good at Dover. Um, and then just because of his consistency right now, I have Byron going on. Now here's where some shockers are. First, I think we are all in agreement that Kurt Busch is going to get eliminated this round. Um, Ryan Blaney, I don't see him moving on. He just hasn't had that fire that, like, I don't know, he just hasn't really been sticking out as of lately. Um, and then this may come as a surprise considering the tracks we're going to. Chase Elliott, I have getting knocked out.
Ooh.
All right.
Here's why.
All right.
Right now, Chase Elliott has the second worst last 10 race average at a 17.1. And I feel like the only way Elliott moves on to the round of eight is if he wins Talladega. And same point as I have with Brad Keselowski, as I think he will not make the round of eight. And I feel like his only shot of advancing is if he wins Talladega as well. Like I said, I feel like we can give a number of arguments why our 12, like just looking at these 12, like who can move on, who can move out, but it's just so tight that at this point, unless you're one of those guys like Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Harvick, it's going to be a dogfight for those spots. Alrighty, so that takes care of the round of 12. Now we move on to the round of 8. Here is where things get interesting for the round of 8. This round, not necessarily in recent years, but in this chase playoffs, whatever you want to call it, the entirety of this format, and considering that we consider this format back to the 2014, 15, 16 years where they didn't have playoff points, this round has a history of non-chasers winning some of these races. So not necessarily in the first two rounds. There's never been a non-chaser that has won any of the races in the first two rounds, but it could happen, and its history says it could happen here in the third round. So that's just something to keep in mind. But looking at who each of us have right now in our round of 8, it only gets more difficult for you. So, Jake, if you could just update who is currently in your round of 8 right now before you predict who goes to the final round of 4.
All right. So, the people I have currently are Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Eric Jones, Danny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Kevin Harvick.
Okay.
And the people who I say are moving on to the final 4 are Kyle Busch, Danny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, and Joey Logano. Because if you notice, every single year, the person who was champion, well, I think Jimmy Johnson is an exception to this, but every time we have like a first-time champion, I should say, they always get back into the final 4. just some miraculous way, they always get back in. That's why I think Joey Logano is going to be back into the playoffs. Kevin Harvick, I feel like he's too hot. He's too hot right now, coming off the finals, coming into the season, like coming off the season like that he finished off on. I feel like he's definitely going to be somebody to really consider for the Final Four. He's too much out there. He's too much of a Harvick right now because he comes out of nowhere. He's always like that guy's like, where does he come from? I feel like he's always going to be considered like a threat for the championship. And as you noticed, I've gone with guys with very much experience. Kyle Busch, I say like right from the beginning, right from like the green flag flies at Las Vegas, he's locked into the Final Four. Like there's no question about it. He has too many stage points. I feel like he's already like a race ahead, just based off finishing positions. Like if you don't count stage points, he's already out. He's already moved on to like the next race, and I feel like he's definitely getting a stage points. He's definitely going to be run up in front. You cannot consider Kyle Busch a threat to go out the first round, a threat to go out the second round, maybe a threat to get out the third round if he doesn't get a win. But I feel like he's going to gather up enough stage points that he's already going to be locked into the Final Four. And then Danny Hamlin, the guy that's in there, that's the only guy that's not a champion. Danny Hamlin has been way too hot this season. He's like every chance I see like him running in a race, it's always like 7th, 8th, 9th, 5th, 4th. Like he's always up front, and I feel like he's gonna gather up enough stage points. He's gonna gather up enough like he's gonna be finishing consistently with all the stage points that he's gathered up. He's gonna be moving on to the Final Four. He's gonna be like one of the biggest threats going into the Final Four. And now for the guys that I think are out, Alex Bowman, I feel like he's going to be the bottom feeder of all this. I feel like Martinsville, not a strong track for him. ISM, home track, not a strong track for him. Texas, maybe a strong track, but I don't see it as like him moving on through the final round. Chase Elliott, he always never has luck in the final round. It always seems like he's so close to winning. He's so close up there. I don't see him moving on because Martinsville could be a track he could win at. Same thing with ISM. We've seen that in 2017. But I feel like the guys who are in the Final Four have way too many stage points compared to Chase Elliott that I feel like he's going to be like the guy who's going to finish like 5th. Brock Keselowski never has any luck, especially like Martinsville. He won Martinsville before, but it's either make or break for him. It's either he's going to finish up front or he's going to rack out. It's a make or break for him at Martinsville. Texas is a strong track for him, but he really, I just don't see him moving on. Like ISM, I don't think he's ever won there. I don't think he's even, I've never seen him like in top 5s at ISM if I'm right. So I feel like he's going to struggle within like the round of 8. He's not going to move on. And then finally, Eric Jones. I said he's hot, but he's not hot enough. I feel like he's not a championship contender at this point of the season. I feel like he's good, but not too good, if that makes sense. Like I feel like he's just gonna run his race and hope for the best. So that's my predictions. On to you, Griff.
All right. So for me, I guess one thing I'll just bounce off of for Cody talking about non-playoff winners. I don't think that'll happen this year, this round. I think people that are currently in the playoffs will win each of the 3 races. Don't know who. But so my 4 that I have going into the Final Four, Championship 4.
Yeah.
First
Actually,
guy
sorry, Griff, don't mean to interrupt you, but could you like just give us a recap of who you currently have in your 8 right now before you make your top 4 pick?
No, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, okay. Wow. Alrighty. Not a simple quest, but
of course. So
okay.
Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that's the stream. See you guys. We're having a falling out. Oh, okay, never mind.
All right. So my 8. So the current 8 I have are Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, and Eric Jones. They are my Elite Eight, if you will. So, moving on to the final four. The four I have. Number one, I'd say Kyle Busch. I mean, he's been pretty good this entire year. And what I'm thinking is I think he'll win once, maybe twice in the playoffs, but that'll be earlier, like in the first two rounds. In the round of 8, I think he'll struggle a little bit, but I think he'll have enough points to take him all the way to the final four. The next guy, I would say, or not what I would say, I got Denny Hamlin. And I think Denny is having one of the best seasons in a long time, if not ever. Um, and I think that him and Kyle Busch are really just going to bounce off of one another all the way to the end because they both have 4 wins, all at very distinct different tracks. And I could even see Denny Hamlin winning one of those final those round of 8 races, and I would say Texas because he won at Texas earlier this year. I think he'll win at Texas again, and that will punch his ticket into Homestead. Number 3, I'm going to say Truex, and Truex is going to kind of be like Kyle Busch, where he's going to kind of just skid on through. But I think something will click for him in the round of 12, round of 8 area, where he will either win or he'll have a really good finish, and that because of his 4 wins earlier this year, will really get him into the Final Four and beyond. And then my last guy, and this is my sleeper, Chase Elliott. I think he will make his first round of 4 appearance, and I think the track that's really going to help him out is Martinsville. Because as I said when I made the sleeper prediction, he's really good at Martinsville. And I would even go as far as to predict him winning Martinsville this year because he's gotten close. Like earlier this year, he was tracking down Keselowski, but was just short. I think because of the stakes, how high they are, I think Chase will get it done. Because of that, he will be the Jimmy Johnson in 2016, Jeff Gordon in 2015, where they're going to do their donuts and they're going to say, "Yeah, I'm going to Homestead." So, yeah, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Chase Elliott are my picks for the round of 4.
That was perfect.
You know?
Winning Homestead. I'm going to Homestead.
Cody,
Like-
I can leave
like-
this whenever I want.
No, don't leave. Don't leave. We just need you for a little while. Okay. Alrighty. So I'm gonna give these first. Well, just to give who my round of 8 is right now. So my round of 8 I have Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Eric Jones. So I'm going to go through the first 3 of my final 4 real quick, just because I think it's pretty obvious, and this would make all. Actually, no, I don't know if you had him in or not, Rick, but Kyle Busch, I think he'll be in there with no ease. He's the number 1 seed right now, and I believe that he could pick up 1 or 2 more wins at a minimum during these playoffs before we get to the final race at Homestead. Hamlin, I don't see why he would not get into the round of 4. I see him getting upwards to possibly 3 wins before we get to Homestead. And Kevin Harvick, he has been hot as well. He could also get 3 wins before we get here. Looking specifically at the tracks that are in this round, like being ISM, which even though the past year he hasn't really been the best at, but in the past several years, looking at there, that has been Harvick's playground. So right now, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick. I have 3 of the top 4 right now. Here's where it got really interesting for me. The guys that are still left out of the 5. Truex, Logano, Larson, Byron, and Joe. It'd be a huge achievement for them personally to make it to the round of 8. And even though they both are really hot right now, I just don't see how, as we get closer and fewer guys, you got those guys up there that have more playoff points than them right now. It's just going to be so hard to make up that gap. And their chance of getting into the Final Four would be that one of those guys were to have an issue, and those guys would have to be stellar. So Jones, and Byron I have out. Um, Logano and Truex, they were two guys that were part of that famous Martinsville feud. And Larson, this would be the first time he makes it to the round of 8. And I feel like with them having tied for the second best average finish right now in the past 10 races, if they get to this point of the round of 8, they are going to be a dangerous team because their confidence is going to be so high at that point. They're going to be like, hey, we're the underdogs. We feel like people are going to be overlooking at us at this point. And so my Cinderella, making up the 4th spot of the Final Four, Kyle Larson. So, Final Four for me, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, and the guy that we always say, just get him to Homestead, Kyle Larson.
Wow.
All right.
I was not expecting Kyle
No.
Larson at all.
No.
I see now why we're like polar opposites then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we
if
all agreed on the same, would this be a really good podcast? Let's be honest. No one wants to see us three agree on the same thing. You got to have those Cinderella guys in there making up your top 4 or something. So,
Griff, you had Martin Truex Jr. in the Final Four, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I have him leaving the round of 12, so this is definitely different.
Yeah.
And one of you two had Larson getting knocked out in the round of 16, which
that
was you. Oh boy. Yep. Like
I
told you.
Like
12, Oh. Yeah. Okay. Yep. So, alrighty. So we get to the final championship race at Homestead. So ever since this championship format in 2014, the winner of the race has always gone on to win the championship. So let's just answer that question first. Do you guys think that it will take to the point of having to win the race to win the championship?
I say yes.
I agree. Yeah, I think so.
Because we've seen it the past few years. It's always the top 4, the first 4 positions in the race, because the field decides to back off.
Yeah,
and they don't. Yeah,
that's I agree with that. Like, because like I just think because the stakes are so big, like no one wants to go in and try and win the race because like they don't want to be that headline. Like, for example, Daniel Hemrick gets in the way of Kyle Busch to give Martin Truex Jr. the championship or something like that. Like, no one wants to be that guy.
No,
it'd be fun drama, but like no one wants to like win the race because again, like the whole season's.
Yeah, I have to agree with you guys too. Like there's just like so regardless of who the Final Four is going to be, there's just going to be so much talent between those 4. They're going to be just the amount they're going to be fighting, the amount of pressure that they're going to have on them. That okay, like we fought through these 12 rounds, we've accumulated as much points, playoff points we could throughout the regular season to get up to this point. The adrenaline, the pressure is going to be on them so much that I don't see why they wouldn't be fighting it out for the win as well as the championship, just because the stakes are that high. And that's how much pressure and work goes into these cars built by the teams, strategies made by the crew chief, car chief, all of that. So, alrighty. We have our final 4. Jake, who do you have as your 2019 Monster Energy Sprint Cup? I totally botched that. Your 2019 NASCAR Monster Energy champion.
So I'm gonna give a biased and an unbiased answer here, because I'm a Kyle Busch fan. I want to see Kyle Busch win, but it just seems like whenever it comes down to Homestead, if he doesn't, like, he always seems like he has like the worst car out of all 4. It always just seems like it rides me every time. Like, I see him in the Final Four, and he's always the last guy. So it's kind of hard to go with Kyle Busch here. in this type of situation. Even though I would love to see him win a second championship, just prove that that 2015 championship was no fluke. I want him to win a true championship. But if I have to go with an unbiased answer, I say the guy that has been said to be the best driver to not win a championship, Danny Hamlin, will pull through because he is so good at Homestead. Every single race that we see at Homestead, he's always running up front. He's always there. We saw it in 2014 when he had a chance to win the championship. He was out front until Kevin Harvick caught up, and he was on worn tires for Hamlin. We see it in 2010. He won that race. 2013, he won that race. So it's kind of hard to go with Kyle Busch in this situation because Danny Hamlin is so good when it comes to Homestead. So that's why I say he is going to be the champion as an unbiased, of course. I want to see Kyle Busch win, but I think Danny Hamlin has the true shot here.
Okay, so for me, so I'll just do my one. I won't play the bias card. So what I'll say and predict is just kind of like how the race will run down. So so my four are Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, and Chase Elliott. So I think throughout the entire race, like those four are pretty much going to be up front. Like I think they will be there pretty much the entire time. The first person who I think is going to really choke out, if you will be Kyle Busch. Nothing against you, Jake.
I understand honestly because he's not good at Homestead.
That and I just feel like he'll make a move that he thinks is super smart and super different, but I think will bite him. And because of that, I think Kyle Busch will be the worst of the four. Mm-hmm. The third I would say is Truex. I think Truex will get close, but I just think from a speed perspective, I think Truex will kind of fall to the wayside more later in the race. And so then because of that, I think that Chase Elliott will get close and like everyone on Twitter and will be screaming and be like, oh my God, can Chase Elliott win the championship? And everyone will be happy and partying in the streets and the
hashtag rigged.
Yeah, and the Dawsonville siren will go on for years and years to come. But I think Chase will be close, but he will not catch Denny Hamlin, who I think will win the championship in 2019 because, and I'm going to just echo what Jake said, he's been really good at Homestead. He's having a phenomenal year. I think, and he'll pull a Tyler Reddick of last year where he won the first race of the year, and he will also win the final race of the year. So Denny Hamlin will be your Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series champion for 2019. Cody?
Alrighty. I was looking at my four that I had. Kyle Busch, Hamlin, Harvick, Larson. And I know we can look at, let's just break down like between like the two that I think will have like the more difficult time. And that's Kyle and Harvick. Here's why I say that. Last year, Kyle, he was one of the favorites going in and just didn't have that speed at Homestead. And Harvick was in the same situation too. Coming on hot towards the end of the year, and just that entire weekend, they were, I believe, the slowest of the championship four. And just at this point, you just kind of go off gut feelings when you're making these predictions. And I just don't have a feeling that those two, they may be the first or the second of the championship four at some point during those races, but towards the end of the race, I don't see it. So that leaves Hamlin and Larson. So the thing with Larson is that we've been saying for years, if you can get him to Homestead, he has a shot of winning the championship. But to do that, he would have to go up against Denny Hamlin, who is probably the hottest driver, best driver right now, not considering Kyle Busch, who's been the best consistent driver over the course of the year. So I am willing to get mocked and made fun of by those who may call me an idiot for this, but for the first time ever, we will have, other than Logano, I don't consider Logano a Cinderella because he was pretty good last year, but for the first time in this playoffs format, we will have a Cinderella underdog win the championship, Kyle Larson.
Wow.
All right. Way to be different.
Yeah.
I kind of saw that coming when you called him hot and get him to Homestead.
Yeah, I mean, literally, if you, I think we can all agree that if Larson gets to Homestead, then it's gonna, like, it doesn't matter who the other who the other three in the Final Four championship are. It is going to be a dogfight. Like I said, I mean, it could be easy to be like, oh, like Larson, he hasn't won a freaking race all this year. He doesn't have that many stage points, whatever, or stage points. Well, not stage points, but playoff points. But you look right now, and as far as going to this bracket, he's seated 9th, which is respectable. And the fact that, you know, he has, and like I said, I'm a big fan of What Have You Done For Me Lately? And he has tied for the best average finish in the last 10 races. That's beating guys. And the only guy that's better than him right now on average as of late is Hamlin. That's it. So he's tied with Kyle for the best average finish last 10 races, but he's beating Byron, he's beating Truex, he's beating Jones, Blaney, Logano, Newman, Kurt Busch, Bowman, Keselowski, all those guys. I feel like that the only reason he's not being talked about as a championship threat is because he hasn't won a race yet this year. I feel like that once he wins a race, that's when people will automatically begin to think that he's a threat. I think he's a threat right now because he's had fast cars, like amazingly fast cars. He almost won Chicagoland. Let's not forget that. And basically that Chicagoland run is where this run started off with this speed that him and his Chip Ganassi teammate Kurt Busch has found. So yeah, I'm willing to get the hate and made fun of for saying Larson is my champion, but that's who I'm picking.
I mean, go Griff.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, best of luck to that. Like, I mean, sure it's different, but hey, I accept you for being different, man, and I love you for that. So, hey, best of luck to Larson. Do I agree? No, but hey, I respect your decision.
Like I said, remember how I said that we're about polar opposites on Larson?
Oh, yeah.
You had him out. You had him first round out, right?
Yep, and I'm sticking to that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so this should be interesting.
Oh yeah,
this should be interesting. And plus, too, I mean, if you want to have a chance to win the NBB challenge, sometimes you got to make these out there predictions and hope they go your way. I mean, how many times do people think that what's going to happen in the NCAA men's basketball tournament is going to turn out, and then it's like, what the heck? Where did this team come from? Personally, I feel like that, you know, those guys like Larson and Byron, those are going to be those Cinderella teams that people are going to be overlooking and be like, wait a second, we should have paid attention to these guys more. Just because I feel like they've earned that recognition and they haven't gotten it.
And actually, one thing I haven't realized, because I'm actually looking through a racing reference, like where he's finished, like in Homestead and stuff like that. Like, he won the second stage last year, finished 13th, didn't have so much luck there. But if you continue, finish third on 2 stages in 2017. If you go to 2016, you finish second. If you go to 2015, he finished 5th. 2014, he finished 13th. Didn't have that much luck, but you saw him running off.
Well, remember that too. What year was it? What was it, 3 or 4 years ago, I believe it was, and he was running third, and he was running down the top two, who were both the two people fighting for the championship. I don't know. It
It was
wasn't
probably
Johnson.
2017 with Truex and
Yeah,
Bush.
yeah. I think
It was
it was those. Yeah, it was those two. It was that year. Truex and Bush. He
okay.
was catching him, and he purposely did not go up there and try to pass him. He even admitted it. He did not go up there and try to pass him because he knew that those guys were fighting for a championship.
And if you actually look at the laps led, he went 145 laps that
Mm-hmm.
day and
Mm-hmm.
scored more points than both
Mm-hmm.
Truex and Kyle Busch that race.
Yep. Yep. And like you said, last year he even brought up the fact that when he was talking about how he didn't go up there and challenge those guys for the lead, he said last year that, hey, I don't care who it is to fight for a championship. I want to go get a win. Part of that was because he was winless last year, and he was
Mm-hmm.
wanting to do whatever he could to get a win. But I mean, 2014, he was up there. 2016, he was on the front row with Johnson for that final restart. Had a chance to win the race there. 2017, could have went up there and passed Truex and Bush if he wanted to, but let those guys fight for the championship. And then last year had great success there. Won stages, got more points than uh, the championship four that you brought up. So yeah, I am confident in saying that if Larson gets the Homestead, he would be, just looking at that one race, the championship favorite, regardless of anyone else who's in there.
And here's the thing, actually, what I've noticed about Kyle Larson is that he shows up at the end of the season. Like last year, like he was like dead last in 12th. Like when he left, like in the round of 12, he got up to ninth in points. So he's like in the year before, he finished eighth after I think he like missed in the round of 12 as well in 2017. Like he's good. He's good at the end of the season. If he could get hot, like if he could just do good in the first two rounds, he could be a threat coming down to the wire.
Yeah, Griff, you got anything to add?
No, dude. I would just say good luck with Larson. Like I understand where you're coming from with Larson. Yeah, I definitely could see him with because of how well he did at Chicagoland earlier this year and in 2017. One counter argument I have with the 2017 thing is the rules package is totally different
Right.
from
Mm-hmm.
that because low downforce, faster speeds, and again, you go out to Chicagoland 2019, but no, Larson is long gone before then. And actually, I would even add, I wouldn't be surprised if he does pull a 2017 Larson and maybe tries going for the win. But he'll see Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin, and he's like, I'm backing out. You two have fun. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what I have to say about that, Workman.
Awesome. So, real quick, so at this point, any of you fans who are watching right now, we'll get to your guys' questions here in a little bit. So, if you have any questions right now, drop them in the live chat right now. And while you guys think of your questions, putting those in there, if you guys have any, just going to go over the NBB challenge again, real quick. So, just the thing to get you guys involved. Just like us, we want to give you guys to have the chance to make your own bracket prediction. Rules are that have your entire bracket filled out and posted to Twitter using the hashtag NBB Challenge, and also tag myself, Griffin, and Jake, and also our future co-host who couldn't make it tonight, Rusty Walrus, on Twitter before the drop of the green flag at Las Vegas this Sunday night for the first race of these playoffs.
And I hate to interrupt, but I think I got to head out. Actually, it's starting to get a little bit late here. I got a good morning class, so it was great, like being able to like discuss this with you guys. Like this has been amazing. Like we had a little bit of a problem at the beginning,
Yeah.
but I mean we've gotten through this. We made a great like progress through all this. So I really do appreciate you guys. I'm ready for whenever the next podcast is, which should be before the Roval, which is gonna be exciting.
Oh yeah.
I'm just gonna say that there's a possible there's a possibility that I could be going to the Roval. I'm still working on that, but
Ooh.
I
Oh wow.
mean, it's definitely like I'm excited for that. So I'll see you guys around then, and thank you everybody
Yep.
for watching. Thank you everybody for sticking around,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
have a great night.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for
All right,
joining
take,
us. And I
take
guess
care.
And I guess since we don't have any questions in the chat right now, we'll just kind of take this time to just to wrap up final thoughts that Jake just did. So, Griffin, do you have any final thoughts just going into these playoffs?
Should be exciting. Definitely a good wide range of drivers. You got the young guns of Byron, Chase Elliott, Larson, and then you also got the older drivers of like Ryan Newman, Kurt Busch, Kevin Harvick. So you have a good range of drivers, different personalities. They're definitely going to clash with one another. And if you guys haven't had your brackets filled out yet, make sure you guys do that. And yeah, it should be a fun next 10 weeks.
Awesome. And then just my take on everything. I think this is probably going to be the most, just looking at how the regular season ended with how many different guys could have made it to the playoffs. Um, I feel like this is going to be the most competitive, most intense playoffs that we've are ever going to see since the introduction of this format since 2014. Even with the amount of stage points that guys like Kyle, Denny, Truex, Logano, Harvick, those guys have all accumulated. Um, the theme that we still see, though, is that the guys that tend to be the top threat are these veterans who have been in the sport forever, as we all agree that Kyle and Hamlin and Harvick are all going to be in contention. Kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily, they are our big three right now, but they are currently the top three guys that you have to keep an eye on as the top contenders. And it'd be interesting to see which one of those guys, like those young guys like Larson, Byron, like you said, Griffin, um, some of these guys who are making their first playoff appearance, these younger guys, like, are any of those guys, these Cinderella young guns, going to be able to take it to these guys, these top guys, these veterans who have been in the sport for a while, uh, that top spot as champion? Uh, so, yeah, as we're going to wrap things up here, I just want to reiterate, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us through this almost hour delay that we had. Like I said, this is my first time streaming using OBS, doing any sort of podcast like this. So I really appreciate you guys sticking around, watching this, um, and just letting us give us our thoughts about our playoff prediction. And if anything that we said tonight, our predictions are backing our evidence of why we think guys will move on is going to influence your guys' predictions, that would be cool also. But as we just learned from these past years of the playoffs, you never know who the champion is going to be until that checkered flag waves at Homestead. So that is it for tonight. For Griffin Spear. I said that
Yes.
right. I said that right.
Woo!
Yes. You're welcome, Griffin. So on behalf of Griffin Spear, Jake Bassinger, this is Cody Workman. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for the very first episode of the NASCAR Bracket Breakdown, and we will see you next time 2 weeks before the Charlotte Roval race. Take care, guys. God bless.